The desert wind blew cold that night, carrying the faint scent of smoke and the whisper of coyotes across the canyon. Beneath a half-collapsed wooden bridge, a boy no older than 13 huddled near a dying fire. His name was Eli, a homeless drifter who had learned to survive on scraps, silence and stubborn hope. The small flame before him was more than heat. It was the only light left in his life. He had no family, no roof, and no one who even remembered his name. Every dawn he wandered the outskirts of the Wild West towns, searching for work that never came, and meals that rarely existed. Yet that night, fate had plans far beyond his hunger. Through the darkness came a faint groan, a sound of pain that didn't belong to the desert beasts. Eli froze, listening. It came again, low and human. Grabbing a burning stick for light, he followed the sound into the sagebrush until he found what looked like a broken shadow on the sand. A native elder, wrapped in torn hides, lay bleeding beside a fallen horse. His leg was twisted, his chest marked with deep bruises. The boy's first thought was fear, for the townsfolk spoke of tribes with suspicion and hate. But his second thought was compassion. Without thinking, he dropped to his knees. "Hey, old man," he whispered, his voice shaking. "You're gonna freeze out here." The elder tried to speak, but only coughed. His horse snorted weakly and went still. Eli tore off his own ragged coat, pressing it over the man's wound. He found an old canteen in his pack and poured the last of his water onto the elder's lips. Hours passed as the boy built a fire, gathered brush, and wrapped the stranger's body with his blanket. When dawn came, Eli's eyes were heavy. His hands blistered, but the elder was alive. Before leaving, the man grasped Eli's arm with surprising strength. "Why help me?" he rasped. Eli shrugged. "'Cause nobody else would." The elder stared at him, not as an enemy, not as a beggar, but as something rare. "You have a brave heart, little wolf," he said, then closed his eyes again. By noon, riders appeared on the horizon. 5 white men from town, angry and armed. They accused the old native of stealing cattle and aimed to finish him off. Eli stood between them, arms wide, shaking but defiant. "He's hurt!" Eli shouted. "You can't shoot a man who can't even stand." The leader spat. "Out of the way, boy. Ain't your fight." "It is now." The men laughed at the trembling orphan, but when he refused to move, they fired a warning shot that cracked a rock near his feet. Eli didn't flinch. He knew he couldn't win, but he wasn't moving. The sun burned overhead, the desert silent except for the pounding of his heart, and somewhere unseen, eyes were watching, dozens of them, from the canyon rim above. When the gunmen finally left, Eli collapsed beside the elder, shaking from fear and exhaustion. He never saw the silent riders descend from the cliffs. Warriors painted in red and gold, their horses moving like shadows through the dust. They surrounded him quietly. One of them dismounted, kneeling beside the elder. The boy backed away, hands raised. But the elder opened his eyes, looked at the riders, and spoke in his native tongue. Whatever he said made every warrior turn to stare at the boy. Moments later, they lifted the elder gently onto a horse and motioned for Eli to follow. He hesitated until the elder nodded once. So the boy walked barefoot and dusty, behind a procession of 100 riders across the golden plains. By evening they reached the tribe's camp, hundreds of tents, glowing with firelight, children running, women singing softly. Eli felt every gaze upon him, some curious, some wary, all intense. The elder was carried into the largest tent. Eli waited outside, unsure if he was prisoner or guest. When the flap opened again, the elder emerged, supported but smiling. He raised his hand for silence and spoke to his people. Eli didn't understand the words, but when the crowd turned toward him, he sensed something bigger than gratitude. The warriors stepped forward, 100 of them, and the eldest among them said in broken English, "The boy who defends one of us becomes one of us." The camp erupted in cheers and cries. Women brought him food, children touched his torn clothes with awe, and a man placed a necklace of carved bone around his neck. Eli's throat tightened. For the first time in his life, someone called him family. Days turned into weeks. The elder's wounds healed, and he became Eli's teacher, showing him how to track, to hunt, to read the stars. The tribe named him Little Wolf, after the elder's first words to him. In every gesture, they honored the courage of a homeless boy who had stood against hate. But the most emotional moment came a month later when the elder took Eli to the riverbank where they'd first met. "You gave without asking," he said. "You fought when you could have run. So now you will never be alone again." Tears filled Eli's eyes. He looked across the river at the sunset blazing over the desert. Once that light had meant another lonely night. Now it meant home. That evening, as drums echoed through the camp and the sky turned red, Eli stood beside the warriors who had once been strangers. The tribe had given him something no gold or town could ever offer: belonging. And as he smiled into the flames, he whispered to himself, "Kindness always comes back." What if this story moved your heart? Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more cinematic stories that prove humanity still lives in every corner of the world. Turn on the bell and join our family, where every story reminds you that one good heart can change a life forever.